Erika.
And I'm Sean.
And we are the Blanchards. This podcast is created to be a safe place where we discuss topics regarding faith, love, family, marriage,
and everything in between through the perspective of an interracial blended couple focused on ministry
and mental health. No topic is off limits. We're about to have adult conversation through the eyes of a Latina scholar, life coach, mother, and wife.
Along with the perspective of a Black king, engineer, entrepreneur, father, and husband. We're about to take brown and Black excellence to a whole new level.
Family Unlocked starts now. Hey, everybody. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
All right. So we got our first question, Sean. Somebody sent it in.
Okay. Let's see what the people have to say.
Okay. Hi, Erika and Sean. I have been going on almost 3 years of marriage and wondering your take on having friends, specifically single friends. Thank you, and I'm loving the podcast.
Awesome. Thank you.
You know what I did forget? I forgot to put the name.
That's okay. They're anonymous. It's no problem.
You know who you are.
You know who you are. Thank you so much for the question. We appreciate it. I will divert this to you. Go ahead, Miss Erika.
Okay. Well, let's make this the subject of our today's podcast.
Okay.
Can you have friends? So in the context that I'm receiving this question is it okay to keep the friends that you had before marriage and to make new ones, primarily focusing on ones that are not married?
You mean single friends? Is that what you're referring to?
Well, that's what it said in the question.
Oh, okay.
Good job.
Okay.
Well, I still have single friends. And I think that the important piece to that question is, are they friends to your marriage, not just to you, right? Well, I mean, my single friends aren't like friends with Sean, but they're friends to me, but they don't respect. They're my friends, and they're, they don't talk to my husband. I mean, they talk to him when they see him, but they're not like, hey, Sean, what are you doing? Calling him, because then I'd have to fight him. But that would be a whole different issue.
Yeah.
But they don't disrespect my marriage.
Mm-mm.
At least for me, like I have friends that I've been friends with for years. And Sean's always telling me like, dude, you have so many friends. But I just have I have a very big family. And I have a lot of friends that I grew up with that became family. Like either I baptized their kids or they baptized my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And we call them comadres. And that's family. And so, but for my like inner circle, like my homegirls, my partners, I've been friends with them for years. Like we have a couple that were in my wedding and solid females. So they love Sean. Like I can think of one friend who adores you, like Vanessa adores you, right? She's like, I love Sean. He's such a good man. And she's someone, if we go somewhere and, somebody will say hi to me or try to buy me a drink or something, she'll be the first to be like, no. And then, the rest of them are like that. And then we have our friends that are married and we tend to have them connect to our partnership. I guess like I had one single friend that I introduced to my other guy single friend, but I wasn't like hanging out with my guy single friend like that. But Sean knew who he was. He knew Edgar. He knew all about him. And then my other friend, I actually hooked them up and now they're like together and starting a life together and they've become our friends. So that's how it kind of works out. And then Sean will have like his own guy friends and then I meet their wives and then, we hit it off because I'm hella cool. Like Candace and Marcus, which we'll probably introduce and have them come onto the podcast because they're really awesome.
They're awesome.
And we became friends.
We love you. We love you, Triggs. You guys rock.
They're so I would say, yeah, as long as they're not disrespecting your marriage. I know for me, like I have friends that are married and I don't ever say anything like, leave him, girl. Like I know I have said something like that in the past because I'm always going to defend my friend and I'm always going to be like, oh, hell no, right? Like, dude, trust. Where we going? Mm-hmm. What do we need to do? Who we checking? I got it. I can be the getaway driver and the trigger man. Like I can do it all. I got you. But I've made that mistake and I would not make that mistake again because I don't know what happens in your marriage. Yeah. So I try to number one, if there's anything that's negative that's happening, then I totally ensure that we're praying and making sure that we're going back to the word and what we're doing, what we need to do that's right with God.
Mm-hmm.
But in addition to that, make sure that they're getting the help they need, because I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on behind closed doors. I just want to make sure my friend's safe. So I would say, yeah, you can, depending on the vibe, right? What kind of vibe does this friend give you? Are they giving you not the best advice? Then I would really reconsider. And what is your goal? Because in life, we're going to need friends. In order to have a healthy relationship, a healthy life, you need to have friends and confidants and people you look to and people you need to support you. What about you? What do you think?
I would say this. I think that you kind of hit it on the head when you said that the friends have to be friendly to your relationship, right? So I think that's first and foremost. Whoever is your friend, whether they're single or they're in a relationship, they need to be friendly to your relationship. Now, the majority of my friends are in relationships. They're either married or they're in relationships. And then I have some friends who are single. And there's nothing wrong with having friends that are single. But every one of my friends knows that my priority is my family first. Right. And so they're all rooting for us. They all want our relationships to be sound and established. And that means that when you go out and you hang out, or if you hang out with your friend, they all need to know where you stand with your relationship. And those friends also need to understand that when you go out, they're looking forward to make sure that you're enjoying yourself, but you're also being respectful. And I think that's something that I would say with Vanessa. Like Vanessa's like, she's a great friend and she's a friend of our relationship and our marriage. So she's the first one to step in and be like, nah, somebody come out, act up, nah, you need to go, right? Because she respects the relationship. So, and I think it's even more so, and this is from the perspective of a guy. I think you really, really have to be careful with this, because you can have a lot of friends who they've been your ride or die for a while, but they may not be friendly to your marriage. And if that's the case, then they could be friends, but they can't be people who are like confidants. They can't be a part of your inner circle. And you have to second guess thinking about hanging out with them. You got to make sure that everybody you surround yourself with is, first and foremost, they know where you stand, and then they know where you stand when it comes to your family and your marriage. And that's the case with everybody that I surround myself. That's just how, to me, that's just easier. So there's nothing wrong with having a single friend, as long as that single friend can respect what it is that you have established with your family.
But I think too, don't you think like a part of that too, at least for some of us females, because I can't speak for everybody, but we have to have respect for your husband as well. Like if you're out here acting a fool, doing some crazy stuff to our friend, cheating, lying, drinking, doing drugs, something, you're just conniving and calculating, then if they choose to stay in the relationship, that's them. And we'd never be like, hey, you better go with that man, because I want you to make sure that you're having fun, because that guy's going to cheat on you. But, we're not necessarily encouraging bad behavior, but we ain't going to have no respect for you. And for a woman who is either your wife, your partner, if we lose respect for the man, then all bets are off. And that could go toward like our partners and our best friends' partners, because for us, when we find a solid one and that's our best friend and that's our partner, that's our comadre, you might as well have married both of us, because we come as a package deal.
Yeah. I would also say this. I would interject in this capacity. Let's say you had a friend who was in a relationship, and let's say, the relationship was rocky, and, there's like, I just want to get out. I want to hang out, and I want to, enjoy myself and not think about, the issues and stuff that they're going through in a relationship. I would say, okay, that's understandable. I can respect that. You kind of want to, chill out. But as a person who understands the dynamic that you still in a relationship, regardless of whether it's up, down, left, right, I will still hold you as a friend. I still hold you accountable to that relationship. The reason why I bring that up is because there's people who they don't really necessarily respect that, especially when it comes to men. You know what I mean? Like they're like, oh, okay, well, they're just doing their thing and it's not a big deal. No, it is a big deal, and so you have to be able to say, okay, you may be going through this or you may be dealing with that. First and foremost, as your friend, I'm going to always encourage you, if you're going through some rocky roads or you're dealing with some issues in your relationship, see if you can work it out, because I definitely want to be accomplished to it. But I also want you to make sure that you still are respecting your relationship, at least when you're hanging out with me.
Yeah, but I think that's two different situations that you're talking about. Like I mentioned before, I would never encourage anybody to stray away,
Mhm.
right? That's not the goal, right? We would hope. I'm not saying all friends aren't like that. I'm sure there's friends that just they get down like that, and that's fine. I don't necessarily have friends like that. I have pretty loyal friends. I don't have any friends that are cheating on their husbands or anything like that. The ones that are in relationships are pretty solid, but we're in a different age bracket, so that's probably different. But like, for example, I don't know if the audience agrees with me or what, but let's think about two different scenarios. One scenario is the relationship where like I have my solid ones. I have like Gabby, I have Vanessa, right? And if we go somewhere, which we have, and the guy's like, hey, let me buy you a drink, they're quick to be like, no, no. Even if you're like someone like you were like, that doesn't bother me. If he's gonna buy it, I'd rather him spend his money than you spend mine, right? But what's the vibe, right? Because we have a lot of homeboys too. Like if we go somewhere, we always run into a group of people. You've gone places with us where we end up going 3 and then there's 20 of us, right? We're 20 deep now. And it depends on the context, right? Let me buy everybody around. Let me do whatever. But if somebody's trying to vibe with you and he's like, let me buy you a drink, right? I'm quick to be like, I'm good, right? But they'll be like, no. And Gabby's always said, I got to bring you home exactly how he brought me, how he let you bring you out. You can't be going in, no fights. You can't go. There's like rules to Gabby because she knows me so well. You can't get in fights. You can't get too drunk. You can't do this. You can't do that, right? So that's that. But with the same respect, Gabby and Vanessa love you. They have relationships with you where they've both had deep conversations with us both there, asked us questions and opinions, prayed for them. They're friends to our relationships, right? They're family friends. I think that's a better way of explaining them, right? They're family friends.
Yeah.
But if you weren't a husband that was respected like that, or you were someone who was cheating on me or treated me badly or was stealing money or keeping money from me or hitting me or, other stuff that's just not cool, right? Treating me a certain way, whether I stayed in it or not, if we went out and somebody was trying to buy me a drink, they'd be like, girl, you better get that drink. You better enjoy your time. You see, they wouldn't say like, go home with him, sleep with him, and have a good time. They're saying they're going to be a little more flexible, give you a little more freedom. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Because I'm sure you've been in not the best relationship and you and Marcus may have gotten somewhere or somebody else. I'm just going to say Marcus for the context of this conversation. And he's just like, see, you're still cute, dude. Don't let this girl not make you feel like you're not cute. See, look at this girl's trying to get you a drink or whatever. Do you see what I'm saying? I understand what I'm saying because you're looking at me like you're perplexed.
I can understand the context of that, especially if the relationship, there's a lot of toxicity in a relationship. Like you said, if the person is cheating and whatnot, I guess I can understand that situation.
I'm not saying cheating doesn't have to necessarily mean that you're cheating, but they don't have respect for you. Like I said, women have it's a big thing for us to have respect for the man, any man.
Okay, so then let's tap into that. So when you say respect, define what that means to you so the audience knows exactly.
The audience or you?
Both.
If you are a horrible partner to my best friend, you're just a slime bucket. You don't necessarily have to be creeping. Like you're just gross, right? You're disrespectful. You talk to her certain way. She has to ask you for money. I'm not going to necessarily give you, I'm going to tell her, blah, 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 go cheat on him. But if we're going somewhere and some guy's smiling at you and talking to you, I'm not going to tell you to cheat on him or anything like that. But I'm just like, see, dude, you don't have to be. That sounds bad. Hold on, let me rewind.
No, you don't have to rewind it. Keep up the story.
But I'm not going to be I don't know. I mean, I'm saying this in a hypothetical because I don't have any friends like that. But
bet not have no friends like that. No,
I don't. All my friends are in marriages and they're fine. And if they're not fine, they can speak up for themselves. I'm not anybody's bodyguard, Yeah. So, but I'm just saying, I wouldn't be don't you talk to him because that's going to make sure he's too good of a man to
He is too good of a man.
It's not necessary.
Yeah, no, I get it.
But if some guy, like if you're just a dog, and it doesn't mean you're cheating on me, you're just whack, right? And some guys like, let me buy her a drink. They're like, you know what? Go ahead and let her buy her a drink because I want her to feel beautiful for today because her husband makes her feel like she's insignificant. I, if I don't get canceled,
They're like 2 episodes in, canceled.
I mean that's what happens. Like we start to step it up. Like you can't treat my homegirl good. You can't treat her well. You can't treat her right. Then I'm gonna take her out. We're gonna have dinner. We'll go get massages. I'm gonna make her feel beautiful. And then I'll send her back home. And when you make her feel again all tattered, and I'll take her back out. Like that's what we do. And in the middle of that, if somebody's like, let me just buy a drink, it's all good. All right. I hope you guys have a good. You know what? It doesn't necessarily have to be just her. I hope I get one. I'm just kidding. But like, if he's like, I'm gonna make sure everybody feels good. Let me pay for your dinner. Let me pay for your drink, whatever. Have a nice day, guys. Bye. Late. Peace out. Like that's nice. That's how we do it. And it's very like shocking to me if you're like, my homeboys wouldn't do that. They wouldn't make sure I was good.
It's not that, the homeboys wouldn't do that. It's a different perspective, right? And so I'm listening to what you're saying and I'm trying to understand it from that perspective. It makes sense. I'm not saying that what you're saying isn't right or justified or anything like that. It's just understanding that because there is such a difference between how men and women think. So to hear you say, what it is that you're saying, it's not like you're going out and you're saying, girl, you need to go get you a new man. Go and let him buy. Like, that's not what you're saying. That's not what you're implying, but you're saying if this person is in a relationship where they're feeling devalued, where they're not feeling respected at home, where the person is a scum bucket or something like that, you know what I mean? Scum bucket. Then, and she says, hey girl, I just want to go out and have fun. Then, of course you take her out, have fun and enjoy yourself and whatnot, just to help her at least see her value out there in the market. Just to say, hey, this person's going to buy you a drink and whatnot. I get it. I understand. But your intention as a friend is not to be like, girl, let me go hook you up and find you another person. Like, that's not what you're trying to do.
Right. And you know what? I'm not trying to save myself from this statement I made.
From the onslaught.
But
the onslaught coming your way.
But I do want to say that I'm a boy mom. So like if I'm having a hard time with you and I'm having a hard day and I just need a break, I don't really want anybody to buy, no man to buy me a drink. I don't want to go out anywhere where there's men. I typically want to just be with my friends. We want to enjoy each other. We want to laugh. We want to dance. Like if anything, we just want to enjoy each other, our friendship, our camaraderie. That's typically what we want to do. So it's not important to involve. It doesn't have to include a man in any context, just so that okay?
No,
But I'm just saying in specific. So in relation to this question, is it a good idea for married couple to have single friends, right? So I would even put a twist on it. Like, is it okay for husbands to have their single female friends? And wives to have their single male friends? Because I kept some of my single male friends.
Yeah, I would say that's actually a really good question. I think you can have friends, but what I've noticed is that the friends, especially if they're of the opposite sex, the ones who respect your marriage, they will tend to fall back in the background.
The ones that aren't married?
Yes, the ones that are not married.
Well, I mean, is that true? Because Marcus was married before you were even considering marriage. You were single. And I mean, dating, I get that. But when he got married, right? And he's like really, really married.
But I thought the context was of the opposite sex.
So, but let me finish.
Okay.
So he was married, and you were dating, and then you became single. You were newly single. And then, so you didn't fall in the back of that marriage. Like you didn't kind of fade away. Like a lot of, like I know my single guy friends kind of fade away, but that's because they got married. And I know what that looks like. The wives usually win. Like the guys go and they become friends with their friends. I get it. But you didn't go nowhere. You stayed friends with Marcus.
Yes, I stayed friends with Marcus, but I think Marcus and I both understood. At least for me, I understood the dynamics of, okay, we grew up together. Yes, he's my best friend, but his priority is no longer our friendship. His priority is his marriage. And I'm okay with that. And so even though I was there, if he couldn't hang out, he could talk, he couldn't do anything like that, I understood. Because I know some people, they have animosity when a person gets into a relationship or a person gets married. They're like, well, I knew this person before then. To me, that was never that. To me, once you get married, like you say, you leave and cleave, that's where your priority is. So
Yeah, but I'm sure for him, and because I know Candace and Marcus pretty well, you weren't necessarily a non-negotiable because you weren't a detriment to their marriage.
mm-mm.
When you have that safety net, understanding that the friendship is a solid friendship that's not going to be a disruption to your marriage, then that there's no serious discussion, right? Like
Yeah.
needed. But you're not that. You're not a threat.
No, I'm not. Definitely not to the marriage. But I think that to go back to the question that you were saying, like about the opposite sex, right? Having friends, I would say as a man, having friends of the opposite sex, I don't think it's necessarily the best thing, specifically if they're single, right? I think that for one, it causes too much confusion. And from my perspective, like I said before, even if this person who is single and you're friends with them, it goes back to what I was saying before. They need to be any of your friends that you consider a close friend, not somebody like a confidant or somebody that you rock with. They have to be friendly with your relationship and friendly with your partner, right? But if your partner's uneasy with it and your partner's not cool with it and it's like, no, you can't be friends with it, then there you go. You know what I mean? I think what I was saying before was that I feel like the friends that I had that were single and that were female, because for one, the ones that I had, they knew you. I'll use like Tiffany as an example.
They didn't know me.
I mean,
I don't know
no,
Tiffany
no,
like
not meaning, but they were introduced to you. They were introduced to you, and
I didn't meet Tiffany until we got married at our wedding.
But you met her. She was introduced to you. She bought you cookies. Cookies were delicious. But
yeah, but I mean, okay. No, I don't agree with that. Because I didn't, it wasn't like you introduced me and I knew this was your friend. I knew you guys, like there was another one who was really close to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I never was introduced to her. I don't remember ever talking with her.
Mm-hmm. The most important thing is they're not friends of mine now.
Well, now they're not, but I think that back then, and you rode hard for them too.
Mm-hmm.
You were like solid. You were like, nah, these are my homegirls. And I was like, we'll see about that. No, I'm just kidding. But I was like, all right, who was I to argue with when I had male friends? So I understood and I was okay with it. It was no issue. But it's not like you introduced them and we were friends, and it's not true.
No. It wasn't friends.
I know, but don't send that vibe like that's what happened, because it wasn't like that.
No,
it wasn't.
I agree with that. I agree with that. It's not like all of a sudden I introduced them and now we became friends.
No, they stayed your friends.
Yes.
Like not my guy friends. All my guy friends became our friends.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have none anymore.
But to go back to the question, I don't necessarily think it's the best thing. Just like I said, just because especially for males, if I'm specifically talking about men, I don't think you should really have friends from the opposite sex, especially if it's something that your wife is single. Yes, single.
What if they're married?
I think it goes back to what I was saying before about like anybody that you have, like they have to be cool with your wife. They have to.
Oh, 100%.
They have to. Like, even if they're married, it's just like, oh, this person's married. Okay, but they still need to be cool. Like, you guys still need to interact. Still need to go to functions. Still need to do stuff. I don't think it's a good idea to have that separate. So it's just, to me, in some aspects, you might even have to cut that relationship to the side. It doesn't mean like you like, okay, good riddance. It's nice knowing you. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is like, there is a level of respect. Especially
if there's no like because I think about like our friends that we have. Like we have friends that are set in specific situations or specific environments, right? We have our friends outside of church, right? We have friends that we became friends with in the church and we're typically all married.
Yes.
Right? Typically we're couples. And then we have our work friends, right? And so I would say like if you are in like it, for the purpose of this conversation or this topic, I would say like when we're at church, we all kind of interconnect, right? Like the guys hang out with the guys, the girls hang out with the girls, but we're all friends.
Yes.
Right? But outside of that, there's no role to be played, right? We don't need to necessarily be friends outside. Not like the friends at church. We don't need to be friends outside of church because we are. But the friends that we have outside of church, like if we're not interconnected in some way, it might be a little weird, right? Like my guy friend needs to be friends with my husband.
Yes.
Like, for example, like my comadres, right? My comadre and my compa. You guys never really kicked it. Like, you guys are cordial, but it never, I don't know, never really took off. Right? So there's no reason for it. So you're not really pushing it, if it makes sense.
Yeah,
Does it make sense what I'm saying?
That makes sense. I mean, I can understand that perspective of it. I think that there's some relationships that you can have where you're like, oh, okay, this is my friend. And then this is their partner or their husband. And then, you know, you want that to be a collaborative effort. So then you're like, oh, you know, my husband, I have somebody he could talk with and hang out with, stuff like that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, you know, and it is what it is. And to me, when you have those situations, if it works, okay, then, you know, now we can go on couples dates or we can hang out. And if it doesn't work, it's like, girl, it's just going to be me and you. Because the guys ain't gonna hang out, and it's okay. I mean, I don't think that's a big deal. You know, I don't think that's a deal breaker. I think that's just, you know, personalities, right? It's just what you have in common. So
then I would say the answer to the question is, as long as the person's not trying to cause any kind of confusion in your marriage, because I would hate for me to make this suggestion, like, keep your homeboy. He sounds like a good, solid guy, and we say yes to single friends, right, of the opposite sex. When this dude is, whenever he sees your husband not doing what he would do, he's now questioning your marriage. Like, no, get rid of him. Bye. Sayonara. We don't need you. Because I don't agree with having anyone that's going to cause any confusion or discord or arguments within a relationship that was ordained by God. Like, that's not important.
Yeah, you don't
need to fight for that relationship. Fight for your marriage.
You also don't want to have a dude that's like trying to woo your girl when things going wrong. He's like, oh man.
Or a girl.
Yeah, or a girl.
It's not always a guy, right?
He'd be like, hey, oh, he did what? Don't worry, girl, I got you.
You know, and then that's a good point, because once somebody can see an example of a good, solid relationship, they want it, right? Like, we had this conversation. I mean, a guy is not going to look at our relationship and be like, man, Sean, your girl's a good girl. I wonder if I could ever find one like that. They're going to see like, man, this girl has his back. This chick is solid. Whatever he wants, she makes sure she can flip it and make it happen, right? That's what they want, is that solid, trustworthy chick. And even if it means your chick. And a female will say, do you see what purse she has on? You see them shoes? You see that outfit? She has all that because of him. I want it too, right? Even if it's hers. It's not unheard of.
No.
Right?
Yeah,
it's not unheard of. So you want to just make sure that you're keeping that relationship secure and that you're hanging around people who are keeping their marriages secure. That's what I think is most important. We can be around anybody, but if they just talking smack and, oh, my husband doesn't do this and my husband doesn't do that and he's bad at this and he's bad at that, then what makes you think that I'm going to think you're going to trust the sanctity of my marriage when you can't even stop, take a deep breath, and think about speaking this life over your marriage is doing?
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I think, you know, that to me, that brings up a whole nother topic, which I think would be a great episode topic is
what do you disclose?
Yeah, disclosing things that's in your marriage outside of your marriage and what that looks like. And I think that would be a great topic. But I think you have to be cautious and aware of the people that, and even though we're using friendships as an example, and this is the topic for this particular episode, I would say that you should be cautious with any relationship that could be negative to the sanctity of this marriage that you have. And it doesn't have to be a friendship. It could be anything, anybody causing discourse in that. But for the sake of this, we're talking about friendship.
Because that could be family too,
yes,
right?
It could be family too. It could be anybody that will cause, like, you know, and unfortunately there's people who are jealous. You know, they can see what it is that you can have. They can see the happiness that you have. They can see the things that you're doing in your life, and they'll pinpoint something. It. Yeah, or they might try to cause destruction.
For
the demise of your relationship.
Yeah.
And so you have to be cautious with that.
I don't feel bad saying it, but my family wasn't very encouraging because we were in a racial relationship. And
Mhm.
I'm sure a lot of people know Mexicans are very much about in your own race, you know, and at least my family, right? And others I've encountered, and that's okay. But, you know, I was like, well, you could have your comment. And I didn't talk to a lot of family members for a long time because I knew what God wanted for me. And I didn't expect them to understand that because we weren't raised in that kind of environment. So I gave grace because I knew they didn't understand. And I've never followed the crowd. So it wasn't unfamiliar for them to see Erika like,
You're like, oh, now
yeah,
she with a brother.
there's one
Lord
finger and this
Jesus.
finger too. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And Erika was out, you know? So it wasn't shocking when I didn't reciprocate any relationship or any comment or any ideology they had. You know, I didn't agree. But I understand what you're saying to that. You have to be careful with who the naysayers are and who the people that are not in the best interest of your relationship because they are. Misery does love company, but not in the context where some believe it could be like this, but not so much that, you know, everybody that's misery wants people to be misery just like them. It's the veil they have over their eyes when you're in misery, right? It's something that we see in mental health with people who suffer from depression, anxiety. They can't see beyond their anxiety and depression. So people who are miserable can't see beyond the misery, right? They can't see that, oh, you know, this is actually not that big of a deal. You guys can work through that because everything seems so challenging and difficult for them. So they're telling you like, girl, you better get out now, right? Because they can only see past a certain point. So it's always best to reach out to someone that can help you. And that's where the specifics of having friends of your in your marriage, because you want somebody who's going to play devil's advocate. You want somebody who's going to see two different perspectives.
And I would actually encourage people to, if you don't, have some OGs in your that's in your group that's been married for a while who can kind of help navigate. And I'm not talking about you guys like you. Yes, you'll have people who you're in relationships with that you guys, we got married around the same time. We dealing with the same time. You need to have somebody who's probably like good 10 years or more over where you at, because 9 times out of 10 they've already encountered the things that you're dealing with, and they can come to you from a different perspective that will make you kind of look at where you're at, right? Because sometimes when you're going through stuff, you can't see anything past what you're going through. But look at what you're at, kind of analyze it, and just give you a different perspective. It doesn't mean that they're saying like, okay, our way is the right way, but it does give you context, right? And you start to be like, okay, well, maybe that wasn't that big of a deal, or maybe she did have a point in, what she was saying, and I have to not be so quick to dismiss her, but be willing to listen to it, and I can probably get to the root of what it is she's saying. So it just gives you different context, and it's important. You kind of need that guidance. You kind of need the mentorship. So I would highly recommend it, to be able to have something like that there in your journey, in your relationship, and just having people that you can bounce, ideas off of, because everybody's story is different. Everybody's story is different. I remember Eric and I would sometimes give advice to couples, because they'll ask us, like, and to be perfectly honest with you, like, we've been married for 10 years, 10 plus years, and, it's great. I love my wife even more today than I did before, but we are growing and we are learning each other, right? So we're still growing in that context. So sometimes when people ask us advice, we can only give it from the perspective of what we've experienced. A lot of times we had to kind of stop doing that, because it was like, well, I don't know what it is to be married with you. You could be everything that they saying you are, right? Like everything they saying, that could be you. And so we had to at least look at the situation and say, okay, be more willing to listen, kind of give a perspective, and then say, hey, you guys, at the end of the day, you got to run with it, because it's your partnership. It's your partnership. You got to figure out what it is to be in partnership with this person, and be able to, whether you willing to communicate, you willing to compromise, you willing to listen and not be so quick to respond, but you willing to listen. So,
or say somebody's wrong,
like,
or believe it, right? Like if I can't stop and think about what you're saying and what you mean by it and stuff, then how are you going to have a marriage? Like if you truly do not agree with how that person does, like moves and shakes in a certain way. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't truly be submissive, and you can't. How do you have a partnership?
Yeah.
You have to have some kind of like agreement. You go into like this podcast, right? It's a business. So we went in and we had to understand, we had to make our mission statement. We had to understand that we were 50-50. We had to understand what it meant, what was our purpose, what we couldn't be both experts or say we're experts in a specific field. We had to separate that. What do I know more about? Okay, let me say that I do that. What do you know more about?
Mhm.
Okay, you say that. We couldn't be specialists in the same thing. It would be a boring podcast, right? So that's like a marriage. We have to ensure that your perspective and my perspective creates that belief system
Mhm.
and that they connect, because as much as you want, even though opposites attract, magnets will still repel,
Yeah.
right? So you have to really look into that. Like for me, I've learned a lot from Sean. Like that, I'm a very like boom, 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 boom person. Like you hand me a list, I'll get that shit done.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have no problem. I'm very competitive. I'm very like eager to learn, but it has to have meaning. I'm not just task oriented. I'm goal oriented. I want to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing and there's meaning behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I won't just go to go. And I have to move with excellence. If there's a shift or change, I can deal, but I have to understand why there's a shift and change. And for Sean, he's very easygoing, very like, okay, move to the next step because this is what I do every day. And that to me felt mediocre. And there was times that I would have conversations with him like, why are we still doing this? Aren't we supposed to have like moved up at some point? Like we're still in this same structure. I need more. And he was like, why? This is fine. We're fine. We're just going along. Do. And then when I explained to him why I needed this movement in a specific way, he understood. And he was like, I get it. She's absolutely right. Or, nah, we're not ready for that jump. And he had explained it to me. And I was like, he's absolutely right. But that always goes back to the initial thing I said. You have to have respect for the guy. You have to have respect for your partner. I have to feel safe and respected. Remember, I'm a child of domestic violence, abuse. We've encountered all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is, check mark, right? So I need to understand. I have to have stability. I have to understand what's happening. And most importantly, I have to make sure that you're not out to get me, in some way, shape, or form. And when you're a child of trauma, it always feels like that. Like you have to make sure this person is still trustworthy.
And I think it's both ways, right?
Yeah.
And so I had to recognize some of the flaws that I had. And you have to understand that you're not perfect at everything. You're just not. You don't know everything. Okay. Regardless of what your experiences are and what you do. And I think that's sometimes that can be the detriment of relationships, is that we come into the relationships with whatever experience we have. And it's like, I did this, I was a great babysitter back in the day, so I know how to deal with kids. No, you know how to deal with the kids you were dealing with. You don't know how to deal with these kids. Right. And everything that goes into dealing with this. Another thing, you don't understand what it is to deal with it at this stage. That's another thing, is that timing is everything. What you've done at a specific time doesn't mean that that's going to necessarily work at this specific time. And so going into it understanding that I don't know everything, I'm learning, and you have to have the ability to continue to learn. And then also have the ability to give each other grace and to be humbled in some aspects and be able to say, okay, these are going to be uncomfortable conversations, and to feel safe that I can have this conversation with my partner and know that this conversation, what this person is telling me, is not meant for my detriment, but it's meant to strengthen the bond. And if you come from a place where that was not cultivated in your childhood or your upbringing, it could be very difficult to deal with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
to recognize,
right? to recognize, because in some case, some of us grew up, you have to fit this certain mold, and you have to be perfect in a certain aspect, and you have to do this in order to be recognized or acknowledged or accepted or whatever that is.
But at the same time, kind of like flow under.
Yeah, flow. Yeah,
fly under the
because you didn't
radar.
want to make any
Yeah,
waves.
you don't want to make waves,
Yeah,
right?
and so a lot of these things you take over into relationships and marriages and whatever, and that becomes a part of who you are. And if you're gonna grow, you're gonna have at some point in your life, if you want to elevate, you're going to have to let go of a lot of the things that you are comfortable with,
Mhm.
right? And it's very challenging. It's not easy to do. It's not easy to
But that's
recognize.
growth, right?
It is growth, but I'll tell you the importance of communication. What Erika was saying before about just about like how she was saying, okay, she's a person that she can do a routine for a little bit, but after a certain time, she needs change. She needs something to
Challenge.
spark. Yeah, it's a challenge or something to spark
interest,
right? Me, I'm a creature of habit. Like I can do the same thing over and over again because I'm comfortable with it. And that comfortability, it can work. It can work for a while, but it's just a part of the daily routine. And it's not necessarily sparking any change. You're kind of doing the same thing. So to have that communicated with Emma about that and her saying like, hey man, like I need this because this is where I'm at. I'm feeling stagnant. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. That has to be communicated with me because now I'm understanding, oh, okay, that makes sense. Yes. This makes sense why you want to do that. Okay. But for some reason, that needs to be communicated to me. I can't get it just doing it on the whim. To me, I'm like, why are we changing it? What's happening? What's going on? What's wrong with it? Yeah, what was wrong with
Yeah.
it? And it can cause frustration because it's like, don't you recognize that I need this?
Yeah.
I need this change. And a lot of times I don't because I'm in my routine. I'm in what's comfortable for me. I'm doing what it is that I've done my entire life. Right? It's just been manifested in another way.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes
you're conditioned to
yes,
a certain
I'm
way.
conditioned.
Yeah. And that makes total sense because then it just brings back the conversation you and I had one time when we were talking about the scenario. We're talking about classical conditioning and about the stove. And the stove, when it's on, it turns red, right? And Sean was the child who mom would say, see that? Red means it's hot. And if you touch it, it'll burn you and it's going to hurt. And Sean was like, 10-4, got it. And I was a kid that was like,
Let's see if this theory is correct.
Like hella hot,
Yeah.
like hot, or like a little bit hot. And I touched it and it was hot. And then I was like, is it going to be hot the second time? And I touched that thing like 4 times. And still to this day, I have to touch just to make sure that my previous recollection of it was that it was hot.
Mm-hmm.
Because it just keeps me motivated, like reminds me of like, oh yeah, I can't do this and I can't do that. Speeding. Like now I don't do it, but I mean, it took me a while, even though I remember I was like, I get away with it. And I got a ticket and I was like, now it's like $600. I'm like, never again. I will never
not in this economy.
Yeah, like I'm like,
I'm
nah,
not
600 ain't like 600 like it used to be. But so I get it. I get what you're saying. And I think on top of that, having friends that can counsel you and they have to be going through something or have had gone through something. Like I rarely ask for any kind of advice from someone who hasn't been through something. Like you can't tell me if I'm dealing with something, especially like with my older boys, I need somebody that's gone through something similar scenario. And there's only one person I go to ask for like, what do you think? Like, what do I do next? And that's a trusted person. I know she's got my back. She had 2 boys from them. She's a blended family. She married her husband and he had 2 older boys. And she's one of the sweetest people I've ever met. She's just consistent. She's a consistent person. She's always this attitude. Like it's never in a where I'm like, have to question, like, is she going to be in a bad mood today or anything? Right. And I also respect when she doesn't respond back because she's busy. You know what I mean? And she's really patient with me because that's a lot of, I'm finding that maybe I challenge people's patience because I'm always I'm very inquisitive. I get in my head, I get like, and then I'm questioning things. And so with her, she's been through things with these boys. Like she has been through it with them. And she is not afraid to tell me, this is what I needed to do. This is what does work. This is what doesn't work. And she's not afraid to give me pop-ups. She doesn't expect me to do it, but if it's not aligned with what God would want for me, she's like, I told you, in so many words. She tries not to do that, but she'll just give you a look. And I try to do the thing she tells me to do because I have so much respect for her. And I know she knows what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think about Pastor Ray. He's so real and he's so honest for me. And that's what I respect from people who can be relatable, who have been through stuff and they're not afraid to say what they've been through. They don't need to sugarcoat, especially like in an environment like being a minister or a pastor. Like I need to see that just a facade or you're not just an image. Like you are a real person behind the cloth,
The title,
behind
right?
the title, behind the, what you need to portray yourself to be. And I have so much respect for that because I understand too, you have to behave a certain way. You have to be some leader, be something to someone, right? But when we're done, when that is off, I need the real you because if I don't connect with that or I feel like there's a shift or a change in it, then that triggers me and I'm just like, I'm good. I'm probably going to cut this relationship off.
There's a level of authenticity that
Or I'm going to put you in a box.
Yeah, that to me, that is required whenever you're engaging with anybody about a real subject, right? So there's times that, for instance, like at my church, I'm a deacon and there's certain roles and responsibilities that I have with being a deacon. But if I'm going through something, I'm dealing with something, whether it's mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, that I need the advice, not necessarily of the pastor, but of the man. That's where you want there to be that transparency, that authenticity come in. And there's certain people that I'll go to for that type of guidance, right? And so that's to me what it is that I look for. And in some aspects, it's a level of not necessarily mentorship because we were learning about that this week, but more coaching of coach adults, you mentor kids. But that's what we're looking for, right? Somebody who can say, hey, I've been through this, I've experienced this. This is my perspective and this is my take on it and what I dealt with. Hopefully it could be helpful to you, right? And it's not necessarily them telling you what to do in that situation, but they're kind of giving you hope.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're giving you hope to
and
say
guidance, right?
and
Like a
guidance
direction
to go through it
Yeah.
and say it's not the end of the world. This is what
that's
it is
good.
that you can deal with, and this is how you can overcome it. And I think that's the beauty of having those type of relationships in your life. And I know we touch bases on all these different things. We talked about, single friends and then we kind of pivoted to the importance of having people who have been married for a while and things of that nature. But all these things, to at least for me, has cultivated my marriage and cultivated my relationships and have really tried to pull out of me this man that God has created me to be, so I can be the best husband that I could be, so that I can be the best father that I can be for my sons, and to really kind of remove this layer of insecurity that's there, right? Because in my mind, I always feel like I'm still trying to be this man that I was created to be. And it's very hard to break out of that shell, right? It's very hard. And then especially when you don't have that example growing up and then you do have it and then it's gone. So you try to capture it in whatever capacity that you can. And so I appreciate people who have come into my life in whatever form or capacity that was. And I've been fortunate to kind of take the good fruit from them and utilize it to the best of the ability so I can be a better version of myself, right? And so that's one thing that I would encourage people to do, especially in their relationships and in their marriage, is look to be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be. Because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. Try to be the best husband that you can be and figure out what that is for you. Talk to your spouse, figure out what it is that they are needing from you. Like my wife is like, sometimes I don't want to be a leader. Yes, I manage the home, but sometimes I don't want to be that at this particular time. I want to be led, and I need you to kind of step that up.
Like I want that pressure off.
Yes.
When just to go back to what you're saying, like what kind of man or husband you want to be. Like we always talk about goal setting and vision boards. And that goes to what kind of person, man, hopes you have for yourself, right? And so that's one of the things we can, you can do to help cultivate that. And then two, the leading, right? I think you're so patient and you're so generous and you're thinking because you understood that I've been a mother since I was 17,
Mhm.
and I don't know how to do anything else. I've been a mom longer than I've been alive, you know, solo. There's times that I take on the responsibilities and you've kind of been like, okay, I'm just going to kind of let her do her.
Mm-hmm.
And now I realize like, okay, I don't have to have that pressure so much, right? But I also know what you do well and what I do well and what you can handle and what you can't handle, you know? And for example, like making the monthly calendars, you can jot down what happens, but the how it's going to get completed, I have to do it. And the trips, the family trips, like the ins and outs of it, of coordinating it. Sean it's just too many moving parts. It's just too overwhelming. He's overstimulated in that aspect. And when I'm overstimulated, I'll tell him I'm overstimulated. Here you go. And I'll hand over the job and he'll handle it. And that's typically like when I have homework, I have a reading, I still have notes for work, and then the kids need a bath. And Sean's like, let me take this, and this off your plate. And that's our magic word. I'm overstimulated. And so we come in and we do what we need to do to help the other person. So I think that too is important, is to understand, okay, what does my partner do and what do they do well and what do they not do well, and not be embarrassed about it. I used to get really, really like annoyed that with myself that you did the drop-offs better than me and the pickups better than me and the bath times better than I could, because now we realize like the kids act totally different when they're with you and when they're with me. With me, everything takes longer. And they're like, nope, I'll take this. Right. And so what do? Okay. We wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. We do our meditations. We do our devotional. We get to the gym. We work out. We get home and I do the breakfast, and we do good breakfasts. And then we make lunches or waters or whatever we need to do. I do all that fluffy stuff. I get them up, I get them ready, and you get them out the door. And you know, because if I'm trying to get them out the door, they're just like, mom, you know.
I'm more firm.
Yeah,
with
let's
that.
go.
Let's go. We got
you forgot. Oh well, but no, he'll come back and get it. But you know, they don't need to know that. So anyway, you know, understanding that, I think we kind of got off the subject of friends, but I think the moral of the story about friends is, do they respect your partner? Right. And that's more important. It's more important than deciding whether or not you need friends. It's more important, is this friend going to respect my relationship? But more importantly, my partner.
Yeah. Yes. 100%. And then also making sure that, I would say, and it's just popped in my head right now, your priority should be your marriage over your friendship. 100%.
And talk about that, because we don't know. We don't know if it's good for you. It worked for us. Like, I have single friends and they're fine. You have single friends.
Yeah.
They're fine. They don't cause any issues or discord. But we also don't allow them the space, I should say, the space to cause any dysfunction.
To be able to do that. Like, that's why I go back to like what your priority is. It's like, oh, well, you know, I want to go hang out with the homie, right? I want to go hang out and do that. And it's like, okay, well, do you have anything that you're doing in your, you know, at home? Is your husband okay with it? Did you talk with him about it? Did you do all this stuff like that? You know, all these things are important, and you have to be able to communicate that. And if that's the dynamic of your relationship, and like I said before, this is just suggestions. You do whatever you want, whatever works in your relationship, works in your relationship. But I would recommend that you have that conversation with your significant other and truly understand their perspective. It's not necessarily about how you feel in that moment. It's how that action makes them feel. And if they're okay with it, then hey, do you. It's you and him. If he's cool with it, you don't need nobody else's permission. You can do whatever you want to. But if that person has a problem with it and then they voice their problem with it, instead of you getting defensive and say, well, I know this person before. And by the way, don't say that. Don't be like, I knew this person before. Don't say that.
Yeah, don't say that.
Don't do that. That's just going to cause issues. But I think you should be like, okay, let me hear them out and let me understand their perspective. And I think that can help you determine what it is you need to do. And if that friend is truly your friend, then they would have no issue with it. They're going to be like, oh yeah, girl, no problem. You know, it's not a big deal. So that's just to kind of wrap that part up. Yeah.
I'm going to leave with this. A man knows a man, just like a woman knows a woman. And I can tell Sean and my sons that female moves a little funny. Mark my words. If this chick can't even look at me in the eye when she's introducing herself, no, I'm just kidding. I don't know. That's a big deal for me. But, you know, if this chick moves a little funny, I don't got time for it. And neither do you, Sean Blanchard.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
100%.
Because I know how I know how petty we can be.
Yeah.
I know how calculating we can be, how manipulative we can be. I know. And I say we because I am a female.
Yeah, well, and I can say this: you peep me out on game so much, and a lot of stuff.
I told you the secrets. We're not supposed to be telling them.
A lot of stuff you can be oblivious to, but my wife will let me know, and I'm like, okay. And sometimes I have no idea it's happening. She'd be like, just give me a heads up, and then I'll do the same thing with her. I'll just tell her some things like, I would caution doing that, or I would do this to do that. I trust my wife, and usually the advice that I give her is not advice like, she could take care of herself because she's more than capable of doing that, but it's more of, let me give you this perspective that you may not have. Like, this is how guys think in this situation. And so she'll take,
and I'll tell them the same thing. This is how a female moves. If you allow her the space to behave in this manner, she will behave in this manner, right? But I will also check him.
Yeah.
You're going to act a little funny too? You're going to get called out. I have no problem calling you out. But nobody's taking, I give good wifey, so nobody's taking my man. So.
No, she's incredible. But, thank you for the question. I know we kind of went a roundabout, right? We kind of, went on a little tangent with it. But
that's what happens during good conversation.
I thought it was good conversation. I thought the conversation got even better as time went by. So I hope that we answered your question to the fullest. But, I think there were some good nuggets in here. I think it's so important to have a conversation with your significant other to discuss these things. I would even suggest for
the pros and cons list.
Yeah, the pros and cons. And this, like I said, even though we may have listeners who are single as well and who are pondering these things, I think this is a good question to bring up with the person that you're interested in courting or, being in a relationship with. These are questions that you should ask. Like, you should, have these questions. Like, how do you feel about this person? And especially if it's a serious relationship, if it's serious with the intent to marry this person, 100% you should have these conversations, because you want to understand what this person's viewpoint is on certain issues. And I just think it's important. It's a good conversation to have, and it'll alleviate any issues down the road in your marriage.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Coach.
Good
job.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Coach.
All right. Thank you, guys. We will see you next time. Submit those questions. Keep them coming. We appreciate you guys and the opportunity you gave us to share our thoughts and to just have conversation.
Yes. Make sure you go on to Family Unlock
on Instagram and Facebook. And we will see you soon. All right. Take care. Have a nice week.
God bless.
Peace.
Deuces.